Okay, so we can get started. We are SEAMAAC. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization here to just talk about how to register to vote, and then also just general election information for the election coming up on November 3rd. So our mission as SEAMAAC, again, a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization located in South Philly, is to really support and serve immigrants and refugees, as well as other groups politically, socially, and economically as they seek to advance the condition of their lives in the United States.
Nuestra misión de SEAMAAC es apoyar y servir a los inmigrantes y refugiados y otras comunidades marginadas políticamente, socialmente y económicamente mientras tratan de avanzar las condiciones de sus vidas en los Estados Unidos.
Yeah, so in particular, SEAMAAC does a lot of civic engagement work. We conduct nonpartisan voter outreach and education, particularly to Asian American and Pacific Islander community members in South Philadelphia and surrounding counties. We also work with the Philadelphia School District to register all eligible high school seniors before the deadline. And on election day, which is Tuesday, November 3rd, we're going to be at 15 different polling sites throughout South Philadelphia. We'll be doing voter protection, provide PPE, and ask voters to fill out an exit poll about their experience. We'll also be providing rides, transportation services to these polling sites, and then finally we'll be providing those rides also to any early voting site.
Trabajamos en la participación cívica. SEAMAAC hace los servicios de asistencia comunal y la educación de votantes no partidistas a los miembros de la comunidad asiático en el sur de Filadelfia y los condados cercanos. También estamos trabajando con el Distrito Escolar de Filadelfia para registrar a todos los estudiantes elegibles de la escuela secundaria antes de la fecha límite. Y también este día de las elecciones, el martes 3 de noviembre, estaremos en 15 sitios de votación en el sur de Filadelfia para llevar a cabo la protección de los votantes, proporcionar el equipo de protección individual y pedir a los votantes que completen una encuesta de salida sobre su experiencia.
So what we'll be covering today is really who is eligible to register to vote, how you can register to vote before the deadline that is coming up on October 19th, Monday, important information and dates for the general election, and then finally early voting sites where you can actually register, submit a mail-in ballot application, and then also get your ballot as well as submit it there all in one place.
Ahora vamos a discutir quién es elegible para inscribirse para votar, las informaciones y fechas importantes, y también los centros de votación anticipada.
So I'm going to give it over to Dave, and he'll start going into who is eligible and those important dates and information.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dave. I'm with SEAMAAC. I'm just going to go over some information about who is eligible to register to vote and some really important information about the upcoming election. So who is eligible to register to vote? In order to register to vote, you must be at least 18 years old by election day, which is November 3rd. You must be a US citizen, and you must have lived in Philadelphia for at least 30 days prior to the election.
¿Quién es elegible para inscribirse para votar? Pues para votar tiene que tener 18 años o más el día de las elecciones, el 3 de noviembre. Tiene que ser ciudadano de los Estados Unidos y tiene que haber vivido en Filadelfia al menos 30 días antes de las elecciones.
So here are some other populations of people that are eligible to register to vote that don't typically get discussed. So if you're in transitional housing, like a shelter or a group house, you can register to vote. If you are unsheltered or homeless, you can also register to vote. If you are on probation, you can register to vote. And if you've been convicted of a felony and are no longer incarcerated, you can register to vote.
Si vive en una vivienda de transición como un refugio o una vivienda colectiva, puede inscribirse para votar. Si no tiene vivienda, también puede inscribirse para votar. Si está en libertad condicional, puede inscribirse. Y si fue culpable de un delito grave y no está encarcelado ahora, también puede inscribirse para votar.
So what will you need when you go to register to vote? You'll need just some simple information like your name, your birthday, and your current address. You'll need to know what political party you'd like to register with. And you'll need one of the two of these things, either your state ID or driver's license with your PennDOT number, or the last 4 digits of your social security number. So you need one of these two things to register to vote. And if you have both, that's great.
Para inscribirse, necesitará su nombre, su fecha de nacimiento y su dirección actual, también su partido político y su identificación del estado, una licencia de conducir con el número PennDOT o también los últimos 4 dígitos de su número de seguridad social.
So you can take a second right now if you need to register to vote. You can actually use your phone to scan the code that's on the screen, or you can visit the website that shows right there on the screen. It's seamaac.vote/2020.
Puede escanear este código con su móvil para inscribirse para votar o también puede visitar seamaac.vote/2020.
And we will share this one more time at the end of the slides. So what happens once you register to vote? So if there's no issues with your application, you will receive an email from the county within a day or two, letting you know that your application has been processed. And if it's been approved, you'll get a voter ID card in the mail. And this ID is needed the first time that you vote at a new polling place for the first time. You can use other forms of ID as your ID that you have to have at a new polling place. And those IDs are a driver's license or ID card, a passport, a student ID with your photo on it, employee ID, a utility bill, a bank statement, or a paycheck. I just also wanted to mention that once you're registered to vote, you actually will stay registered until you change your address, political party, or name.
Lo que pasa después de inscribirse para votar, si no hay problemas con su solicitud, debe recibir un correo electrónico del condado en un día o 2 que confirma que su solicitud está siendo procesada. Si se aprueba, recibirá una credencial de elector por correo. Esta identificación solo es necesario la primera vez que usted vota en un nuevo lugar de votación, pero hay otras formas de identificación que también son aceptables, como una licencia de conducir válida de Pensilvania o una tarjeta de PennDOT, una identificación válida emitida por cualquier agencia de Pensilvania, un pasaporte válido de los Estados Unidos, una identificación de estudiante válida, una identificación válida del empleo, una factura actual de servicios públicos, un estado actual de cuenta o un sueldo. También, una vez registrado, se permanecerá registrado hasta que cambie su dirección, su partido político o su nombre.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about what's on the ballot this year, so why we're voting and the things that we're going to be able to vote for this coming election. So on the ballot, I'm going to first discuss the candidates that are up for election. So first we have the President of the United States, which many of you have probably heard about. So this person is the head of our government and the Commander-in-Chief of our armed forces. Our Attorney General of Pennsylvania, our Treasurer, and also our state senators and House of Representatives. These folks represent us locally here in Philadelphia. So it's going to be really important that we're voting for someone that represents us and shares values that we have.
En la boleta son los candidatos como el presidente de los Estados Unidos, quien es el jefe del gobierno. También hay el procurador general de Pensilvania, quien es el funcionario de mayor rango del estado encargado de hacer cumplir la ley. También el tesorero de Pensilvania, quien administra invierte el dinero del estado, también los senadores del estado de Pensilvania y la Cámara de Representantes de Pensilvania.
Also this year, we have some really interesting ballot questions. So these are things that are propositions that we as voters will have the opportunity to vote on and decide some bigger issues that are happening in our city and maybe statewide as well. So I'm just going to quickly talk about a few of them that are on the ballot this year. The first one is called End, Stop, and Frisk. So if you vote yes on this, you want the Philadelphia Police Department to end the practice of unconstitutional stop and frisk. That means that a police officer could not stop someone because of their race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, religious affiliation or expression, or any other protected characteristics. The officer instead must have a reasonable suspicion that the person is engaged in criminal activity. The other one is the Office of the Victim Advocate. If you vote yes on this, you want the city to create basically an office that would advocate for the rights of crime victims.
También en la boleta son preguntas de votación. Pregunta 1 es sobre la revisión precautoria. Si vota sí, quiere que el Departamento de Policía de Filadelfia interrumpa la práctica de la revisión precautoria anticonstitucional. Eso significa que un oficial de policía no podrá detener a alguien por su raza, origen étnico, género, sexualidad, afiliación o expresión religiosa u otras características protegidas. En cambio, el oficial debe tener una sospecha razonable de que la persona está realizando una actividad criminal. Pregunta 2 es sobre la Oficina de Defensa de las Víctimas. Si vota sí, quiere que la ciudad cree una oficina que defendería los derechos de las víctimas de los crímenes.
There are two other ballot questions here in Philadelphia. One is about Citizens Police Oversight Commission. If you voted yes on this, if you vote yes on this, you basically want the city to create a Citizens Police Oversight Commission as a permanent part of our city government. This commission would work to improve police officer conduct and hold the Philadelphia Police Department accountable for officers' actions. The other one is about borrowing money. So if we voted yes on this, you would want that the city of Philadelphia could borrow $134 million to spend on things like transit, streets and sanitation, municipal buildings, parks and rec, museums, economic and community development, things like that.
Hay más preguntas de votación. Pregunta 3 es sobre una comisión de ciudadanos para el control policial. Si vota sí, quiere que la ciudad cree una comisión de ciudadanos para el control policial como una parte permanente del gobierno de la ciudad. La comisión trabajará para mejorar la conducta de los oficiales de policía y hará responsable al Departamento de Policía de Filadelfia de las acciones de los policías. También pregunta 4 es sobre pedir préstamos. Si vota sí, quiere que la ciudad de Filadelfia pida 134 millones para gastarlos en lo siguiente: tránsito, calles y saneamiento, edificios municipales, parques y zonas de recreación, museos y desarrollo económico y comunitario.
So
Before
really
I move
quick,
on to the next step,
sorry, Dave.
yeah, I was going to introduce Mark.
Oh, okay, great.
Cool.
At the
Yeah.
same point, I have to run. I'm sorry. I'm Andy from SEAMAAC, and I work with Dave and Michelle, and we have a great team. And Matthew, sorry about that, Matthew. And Councilman Squilla as well, of course, part of our team too. All right, thanks, guys.
Bye, Andy.
I just wanted to give the floor to Councilman Squilla. Thank you so much, Mr. Squilla, for joining us today, and take it away.
Thank you, Dave. I really appreciate it, and Ryan and Liz and everybody on the phone. This is a really important election, and I really am proud to hear the advocacy around, especially our young folks and people in our underserved communities, immigrant communities, to get them engaged in the civic. And I know a lot of people always say that, oh, my vote doesn't count. Well, this election, it does count. Every single vote matters. And to be able to understand the ballot, and Dave and Ryan, I really appreciate the explanations that you have been giving. It's so important. It's always important to vote on those questions because they have a big impact also on the quality of your life. A lot of people don't realize that, and they never even go to that section. But it's important to understand what those questions are ahead of time and then vote on those questions. But, you know, as we see, and it's a big election, obviously, for the president of the United States, but it's also important to go down the ballot. We have a lot of local elected officials that you actually could reach out to and touch and really impact you at a greater level than some of the more federal or bigger elections. So to actually tell the, you know, attorney general, the row offices, your state senators, your state representatives, they're the ones who you really have access to, the ones you go to when you have local problems, just like they are when you deal with a city council member. So don't just vote if you're going to vote at the top of the ticket. Just don't vote for the top of the ticket. Work your way down, understanding what those offices do, understanding how they impact your life, and then vote for the best person who represents your interest. And so I think what you have done is tremendous. And I guess I was supposed to stop somewhere because you have to translate it. I apologize, Ryan. But I really appreciate what you're doing, and to get this message out is so important.
Voy a tratar de resumir lo que ha dicho el concejal. Básicamente, esto nos ha animado, ha dado gracias a este evento. El impacto que tiene esta elección es un impacto grande. Da gracias a la gente de SEAMAAC por el trabajo que hacen en defensa y por animar a la gente, y en especial a la gente migrante, para participar en esta elección. Sé que mucha gente piensa que su voto no cuenta. Quiero decir que todos los votos, cada voto en singular, todos cuentan. Especialmente en este momento, tiene un impacto muy grande. Muchas de estas preguntas que se han visto tienen un impacto muy grande en nuestra calidad de vida cada día. Entonces quiero animar a todo el mundo a que vote. Esta es una elección grande, es una elección importante, no solo por la parte del presidente, por supuesto, sino porque también hay mucha gente como local, mucha gente que se elige a nivel local, que puede tener un gran impacto en nuestra vida. Me refiero como a nuestros representantes elegidos a nivel del Senado o a nivel de representantes de la Casa. Todas estas personas son programas locales, son personas locales a las que se puede como solicitar ayuda, apoyo, más o menos igual que se hace con los concejales como yo. Entonces quiero recomendar a todo el mundo que se esfuercen por votar, que voten, y que no solo voten por lo que dice arriba de la boleta, sino que sigan mirando abajo, que lean toda la boleta completa hasta abajo y que voten a la persona que creen que va a tener un buen impacto, un buen impacto en sus vidas, también a nivel local. Una vez más, esto puede tener un impacto tremendo. Agradezco mucho el trabajo que están haciendo. Aprecio mucho la labor que realizan.
Thank you. That sounded great. And one last thing I wanted to add is, you know, it's so important. If you're not registered to vote, you only have a short time to register. Make sure you get out there, register to vote. And if you feel uncomfortable going to the polls, you know, now with the mail-in ballots, apply for the mail-in ballot right away and get that in. We have drop boxes throughout the city of Philadelphia to make sure your voice is heard. The only way you're going to have your voice heard is by voting. And, you know, make sure you vote for the people who best represent your interests. So thank you so much for letting me speak and having me join this conversation. And you guys keep up the great work. Looking forward to continue working with you.
Muchas gracias. Parece que esa interpretación ha estado bastante bien. Gracias por este espacio que me dan. Quiero decir también que si usted no está registrado para votar, tiene muy poquito tiempo todavía para hacerlo. Le pido que usted se registre lo antes posible. También, si usted de repente no se siente cómodo yendo a los lugares de voto, todavía puede como solicitar el voto por correo. También hay bastantes puntos en la ciudad de Filadelfia donde puede depositar su voto. Quería reafirmar la idea de que la única manera en que su voz puede ser escuchada es si usted vota. Así que asegúrese de que vota y asegúrese de que vota a gente que va a representar sus intereses bien. Muchas gracias por permitirme en este espacio. Sigan adelante con este buen trabajo y gracias por darme la oportunidad de unirme a esta conversación.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Rodrigo. And thank you so much, Councilman Squilla, for joining us, taking the time out of your busy schedule. SEAMAAC really thanks you, as well as the South Philadelphia community, to just come out here and make sure to push us all to vote and what matters, and kind of the importance of civic engagement for all community members. So we really, really appreciate you.
Well, thank you all. I'm sorry.
Gracias, concejal Esquila, gracias también Rodrigo, gracias por apoyar como la labor de SEAMAAC y también por animar a toda la comunidad del sur de Filadelfia a participar y a unirse como al voto en estas elecciones.
Thank you all again. I appreciate your advocacy because you're the guys that are making it happen, and you guys are the ones on the street and reaching the folks that we sometimes have a hard time reaching. So keep up the great work. Whatever you guys need, please let me know. And thank you. And looking forward to Election Day and getting everybody out there to vote. God bless.
Gracias a todo el mundo, gracias por el trabajo de defensa que hacen, gracias por llegar, por estar en la calle trabajando. Ustedes tienen la oportunidad de trabajar con personas que habitualmente nosotros no. Espero con mucha ansia el día de la llegada del día de las elecciones. Gracias por el buen trabajo.
Bye bye. Thank you all.
Adiós, gracias a todos. Gracias.
Bye.
Awesome. I'm just going to pick up where we left off. So we talked a little bit about what ballot questions are going to be on our ballot this year. If you wanted to see what your ballot looks like ahead of time, so you can just get a sense of what it's going to look like, what things exactly you're going to be voting for, who you're going to be voting for, and to look them up, you can go to this nonpartisan website. It's ballot.70.org. And you can actually preview your ballot ahead of time, put your zip code in, and get a sense of who you're going to be voting for this year.
Vamos a empezar. Puede conseguir su boleta, una boleta de muestra, y si quiere realizar una lista previa de su boleta, visite esta página web y entre su código postal, es ballot.70.org.
And as Councilman Squilla mentioned, voting by mail is a safe option for us this year. It's secure, it's very easy, and for the first time in a presidential election, any registered voter in Pennsylvania can actually apply for a mail-in ballot. And the process is quite simple. We would just apply. You can either apply by mail or apply online. We'll give you the link for that at the end. Once you receive your mail-in ballot, you just want to fill it in, put it back inside the secrecy envelope, and just turn it into a mailbox. There's a few other places for you to drop off your ballot, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Votar por correo es seguro, fiable y fácil. Cualquier votante registrado en Pensilvania puede solicitar una boleta de correo y vamos a tener más información sobre votar por correo al fin.
So the city of Philadelphia has opened many early voting sites. So here you can actually register to vote, request your mail-in ballot, and vote right away. So it's really like a way for us to just vote early this year. You can also drop off your completed mail-in ballot at these locations, and these sites are going to be open through Election Day on November 3rd. The ones closest to us here in South Philly, there's one at City Hall, and there's one at Kappa right on Broad Street. They're open Monday to Thursday from 11:30 to 6:30, and Friday to Sunday, and 9:30 to 4:30.
La ciudad de Filadelfia ha abierto muchos sitios de votación anticipada. Aquí puede inscribirse para votar, solicitar una boleta por correo y votar de inmediato. También puede dejar su boleta por correo completada en estos lugares. Estos sitios estarán abiertos hasta el día de las elecciones, el 3 de noviembre, y aquí tenemos el horario de los centros.
And SEAMAAC is actually offering free rides to your polling place on Election Day, or to one of the early voting sites that we just described every Saturday until the election. If you would like a free ride either to your polling place or to one of these early voting sites, you can just call SEAMAAC at this phone number here. It's 215-346-6273.
Si quisiera transportación segura y libre a un centro de votación anticipada o a su lugar de votación el día de las elecciones, puede llamar a SEAMAAC al 215-346-6273.
And some important dates. Actually, I'm going to throw it back to you, Michelle, if that's cool, to kind of talk over these important dates.
Yeah. So some important dates regarding the November election that's coming up. The last day to register to vote is actually only in a few days. Sorry. It is Monday, October 19th. So if you're watching this now, you only have a few days to register to vote. It's really, really important to do that as soon as possible. If you are doing a paper application, I would say make sure you drop that off at an early voting location rather than by mail, because there is not much time in these next few days. The last day to apply for a mail-in is October 27th at 5 p.m. I will also say, as Dave has mentioned, you can get that mail-in ballot application at a early voting site as well and submit it there. Election day and when mail-in ballots are due is Tuesday, November 3rd. However, something to note, completed ballots can be received by the Friday after the November 3rd election. However, to count ballots arriving after Election Day, they must either be postmarked by November 3rd or not have any proof that they were sent afterwards. So ballots that arrive by the new deadline with missing or ineligible postmarks, they actually would still be counted. However, in terms of thinking about what you're going to do and submitting your ballots, I would say make sure all ballots are either dropped off at an early voting place by Tuesday, November 3rd, Election Day, or drop that off even earlier or by mail even earlier.
Aquí tenemos fechas importantes para ustedes. La fecha límite para registrarse para votar es el lunes, el 19 de octubre. La fecha límite para solicitar una boleta por correo es el martes 27 de octubre a las 5 de la tarde. El día de las elecciones y la fecha límite para enviar su boleta por correo es el martes 3 de noviembre. Y el 6 de noviembre, las boletas completadas deben ser recibidas a más tardar en esta fecha. Sin embargo, para contar boletas recibidas después del día de las elecciones, tienen que ser mataselladas a más tardar con 3 de noviembre.
Okay, so this is pretty much the end of our presentation. Just a few last minute things to kind of wrap up what we just talked about. Who can register to vote? Again, you must be 18 years old by Election Day, which is November 3rd. You must be a US citizen. The voter registration deadline is fast approaching. It's on Monday, October 19th. October 27th is that last day to apply for a mail-in ballot, and then Election Day is November 3rd. If you're a first-time voter, you will have to bring a form of ID when you vote at the polling place. However, that ID can come in many different forms. It can be that voter ID card you get in the mail, state ID, driver's license, student ID, actual paycheck, gas bill, any of those things work as well. Vote by mail is a safe option. As mentioned throughout the presentation, you can apply using the VotesPA application, votespa.com website link, but you can also just do that at an early voting location. And then finally, you can find your polling place at www.philadelphiavotes.com, and you can apply online using this QR code right at the corner of the screen, or your PEN.ID ID or the last 4 digits of your social security number as well. So thank you so much. Kind of the last thing here, we aren't going to be registering folks right at this moment in this session, but if you're watching this at a later time, you can actually vote using this direct link. It's just seamaac.vote/2020, and you can do that directly online. If you want to ride with SEAMAAC, you can also call our number. It will be in the chat, and it also is right up here, 215-346-6273. Sorry, that was a lot, Ryan. So if you can't
Sí,
everything immediately, no worries.
Nuestra página web tiene más información sobre cómo puede registrarse. El sitio es seamaac.com/2020, y también para encontrar su lugar de votar puede visitar philadelphiavotes.com, y también puede visitar VotesPA para aplicar por una boleta por correo.
So thank you everyone so much for watching. We appreciate you listening to this important information for this very, very important election. We hope that you take this time to register to vote if you haven't already, or if you have, then make sure you go to that early voting site, get your mail-in ballot, or vote in person on election day. Really depends on what you'd like to do as a voter. We're just here to support and provide you this important information to make sure you do get out and vote.
Gracias por escuchar y ojalá que ustedes voten. Gracias.